Hey there, students. I hope you're all doing well. Today I have a new book of mythology that I want to hop into with you guys. This is Edith Hamilton's Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes. Now, a brief history prior to this book coming out, Bullfinchs Mythology was the seminal and premier text on mythology and fables and all of that, and I was lucky to have the completely compiled edition right here, even though it's all now in the public domain. Now, after that book, eventually Edith Hamilton came out with her text on mythology. And whereas Bullfinch presented a lot of raw story, he would sometimes take a dive below the surface. Edith Hamilton took it one step further. She went deep into her studies of the cultures that these stories came from, and extrapolated a lot of stuff. So this is the text that eventually went on to replace Bullfinch's Mythology as the mythology text. Now that said, I prefer Bullfinch's Mythology. Nothing against Edith Hamilton. It's fun for me to be able to all in this one text, and it could just be how it's compiled. This book has Greek and Roman gods, and in case you didn't know, the Greeks and Romans shared a lot of their mythology with one another. They just kind of swapped the names out. This book also has some Norse, but it doesn't have the Age of Chivalry, Charlemagne, King Arthur. That's not really in Edith Hamilton's book here, as it is in Bullfinch's. It's really fun for me to jump into some of the language of Bullfinch, especially when reading those chivalric tales. So, that's just preference. I love Bullfinch's Mythology. It was also the first real big book of mythology that I jumped into as a kid, so that probably has something to do with it. But I will not sit here and deny that Edith Hamilton's mythology is widely regarded as the best text for reading and learning those mythology stories. Anyways, that was a really long-winded introduction. I'm going to flip this open, and we can jump in to a tale of Edith Hamilton's Mythology. I'm going to look through here real quick and see if I can't find one. Okay, so here in part 6, there's a couple of really quick stories called Less Important Myths, and this might just be a nice little introduction for us into Edith Hamilton's mythology. So I'm going to go to page 278, where we talk about King Midas. I'm not sure if you know who King Midas is, but King Midas is a story about a king who everything he touches turns to gold. So, touch turns to gold. Sounds like a wonderful gift, but if you think about it for a little bit longer, you could see how everything you touch turns to gold. Could be quite the damper. So, opening up to part 6, Less Important Myths. This is King Midas and Others. The story of Midas is told best by Ovid, from whom I have taken it. Pindar is my authority for Aesculapius, whose life he tells in full. The Dionysiads are the subject of one of the plays of Aeschylus. Glaucus and Scylla, Pomona and Vertumnus, Erysichthon, all come from Ovid. Midas, who has become a synonym for a rich man, had very little profit from his riches, and experience of possessing them lasted for less than half a day, and it threatened him with a speedy death. He was an example of folly, being as fatal as sin, for he meant no harm, he merely did not use any intelligence. His story suggests that he had none to use. He was king of Phrygia, the land of roses, and he had great rose gardens near his palace. Into them once strayed old Silenus, who, intoxicated as always, had wandered off from Bacchus's train, where he belonged, and lost his way. The fat old drunkard was found asleep in a bower of roses by some of the servants of the palace. They bound him with rosy garlands, set a flowering wreath on his head, woke him up, and bore him in this ridiculous guise to Midas as a great joke. Midas welcomed him, and entertained him for 10 days. Then he led him to Bacchus, who, delighted to get him back, told Midas whatever wish he made would come true. Without giving a thought to the inevitable result, Midas wished that whatever he touched would turn to gold. Of course, Bacchus, in granting the favor, foresaw what would happen at the next meal, but Midas saw nothing until the food he lifted to his lips became a lump of metal. Dismayed and very hungry and thirsty, he was forced to hurry off to the god and implore him to take his favor back. Bacchus told him to go wash in the source of the river Pactolus, and he would lose the fatal gift. He did so, and that was said to be the reason why gold was found in the sands of the river. Later on, Apollo changed Midas's ears into those of an ass, but again the punishment was for stupidity, not for any wrongdoing. He was chosen as one of the umpires in a musical contest between Apollo and Pan. The rustic god could play very pleasing tunes on his pipes of reed, but when Apollo struck his silver lyre, there was no sound on earth or in heaven that could equal the melody, except only the choir of the muses. Nevertheless, although the umpire, the mountain god Tmolus, gave the palm to Apollo, Midas, no more intelligent musically than in any other way, honestly preferred Pan. Of course, this was double stupidity on his part. Ordinary prudence would have reminded him that it was dangerous to side against Apollo with Pan, who was infinitely less powerful. And so he got his ass's ears. Apollo said that he was merely giving to ears so dull and dense the proper shape. Midas hid them under a cap, especially made for that purpose, but the servant who cut his hair was obliged to see them. He swore a solemn oath never to tell, but the secrecy so weighed upon the man that he eventually went and dug a hole in a field and spoke softly into it. "King Midas has ass's ears." Then he felt relieved and filled the hole up, but in the spring reeds grew there, and when stirred by the wind they whispered those buried words, and revealed to men not only the truth of what happened to the poor stupid king, but also that when gods are contestants, the only safe course is to side with the strongest. So like I said, that's a really quick story from Edith Hamilton's mythology, but I hope it served well to give a taste of her writing style, how she takes these myths. Midas is a common one. It's been retold by Muppets, various cartoons out there. It's a well-known story, the king who everything he touches turns to gold. And that was covered real quick in here. But yeah, so I'm going to be pulling some stories out of Edith Hamilton's mythology, as well as the rest of our text, which we have begun together. So I hope you enjoyed this new edition. I love this book. It's widely respected, and in any sort of academic conversations about mythology, Edith Hamilton's name will come up. So it is handy to know these stories and to appreciate them, if nothing else. Anyways, I hope you all have a great day. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay in the pursuit of knowledge. Goodbye.